All right, so I just want to go over a couple designs I'm working on. The first one is this one, which is just a revision of this one. In my mind, it has some improvements to what this one is. They're both very similar. They both have an 8-inch blade that's 3 inches wide. Both have the same curvature, the same angle almost. The only difference is that this one comes out a little bit more, goes a little bit lower. I'll show you the grip on it too in a second. This notch is missing on top of this one. This has the top curved more too. And just to show you, see. And then the grip itself, this has a lot of space in the front. And then the curvature on this one, which I already talked about, doesn't wrap underneath your pinky like this one does. This one does. So once I grip this, my hand is basically touching all sides of the knife. I know that's kind of restrictive. I don't like the Spartan because of that, but for this one, it's basically, I don't know, it feels natural. I'm gonna have to work on the depth of these two little notches. Once I put on the grip itself, it's gonna be G10 just like this one. Besides that, yeah, besides that's very similar. I just wanted my hand right up against it, and then ice pick grip. Perfect for me. So yeah, also right up against it. And I added, if you can tell, the plunge cut on the grind isn't as high as this one. This is a lot thicker behind the edge. It's more of a poking knife, but it should cut well too. We'll see. Yeah. All right, so on my second design. So I've been wanting to make a design for a thinner knife just from what I've experienced with these knives. I've been wanting to work with thinner knives now just because they do everything better. They pierce better, they cut better. If you give them a thin geometry, they do everything better that you want a knife to do. They can chop as long as you make them long enough. So everything works. The only thing that, and this is not a problem for me, that they're worse at is they don't have that much mass, so they can be deflected easier, and they stop easier too. They can be blocked easier. So that works for things too. If you're chopping something, it's easier for a thinner knife to be deflected. If you're cutting something and you do the wrong angle, it can deflect rather than sticking. And yeah, it won't go as deep, even though it can chop, it won't go as deep as something with more mass. But besides that, so I came up with this, and this is a double-edged Tanto. I can't think of anything else. I guess it can be a double-edged Sox, but all Sox is SEAX, I think. Sox the knife, not the clothing item. But okay, so on this side, so this represents the secondary bevel, and I'm planning actually of just doing a zero grind all the way down to the bottom, and it will go all the way to here. It's gonna have a secondary tip just like a Tanto, but it's not gonna have that grind that a Tanto has, like that straight line here all the way to the secondary tip. It's just gonna go all the way to the end. This on this side will be flat. I don't know if that makes sense. And then the back is basically a Sox. So let me flip it for you. So the back is a Sox. So this side will have this tip as a way to cut. The edge is going to end here. I always like to have something where I can put my thumb up against to put pressure on the main cutting edge, which this will be. If you see, the handle is tilted slightly, and the reason I did that was because this is going to be mostly a slashing knife, and the way I want to do that is by having the tip of both of these sides present when you're using either side. So this is tilted this way, so it presents this more, the secondary tip when you're holding it like this. The way I used to do that when I had a straight handle for when I did a regular Tanto is I would give this a curve and it would end somewhere like here. So this side would be thinner, and that would help with presenting that tip whenever you cut at something, when you slashed at something. This does the same thing, but just by curving the handle. And so now having this handle curved too will make it so that this is the first thing you cut with, because it is tilted forward when you're holding it like this. I don't know, let me see my left hand. You're holding it like this. So let me just kind of explain for the sock side. So imagine this is the tip that is the socks, and this side would be sharp. So instead of just like this, it is slightly curved forward when you hold it like this. So when you do cut, the first thing that makes contact will always be the tip. Same thing with that, if I explained it right. I had to think of a way, or think of a handle shape that both sides would be comfortable. I also wanted to have it wider on this side because I don't like the idea of my hand sliding forward. So I always like to have a thicker, or at least some way to stop your hand from going forward. So that helps, these sides help, but also the way I designed each side of this handle is by just covering one side. And if you look at it, look at the whole thing. So I thought of a design of the handle that would work for this particular knife and the angle it had. I came up with this, and then I covered the other side, and it had to think of a design that would be comfortable and that would work fine. I made this little part a little extra long for my pinky. For me, if you have more of a fulcrum, or I don't know what you would call that, a little bit more leverage for your pinky, you can do snap cuts a lot better if you have a bit of a curve for your pinky. So I did that, and this is what I came up with. So yeah, I had to be mindful too that on the opposite way of using this, so once this is in my palm, I had to be aware that this was going to be my palm, and I didn't want any hot spots, so I had to make sure that this wasn't too pronounced, or this wasn't too pronounced either. So I think it should be fine. So yeah, now just to talk about steel a little bit. The steel I'm going to use for this is going to be CPM 3V, but I'm going to try to get Nathan the machinist to let me use his Delta V heat treatment. So Peter's heat treatment can do Delta V. Look it up if you have a chance. So 3V Delta, I keep calling it Delta V. 3V Delta heat treatment, and Peter's can do that. But the thing is, I don't know. It's proprietary to Nathan, and I don't know how I would go about getting Nathan to let me use it. So hopefully there's like just some amount I can pay him to do it for this knife. Hopefully that happens or works. But I'll try to contact him once I have this knife ready to send out. So once I have it actually in steel and all that, ready to send out to get heat treated, I'll try to contact them and see if I can actually get to do that. So besides that, I was thinking of 4V and Venatus 4E. So those two, so just V4E for short. So those two steels, I was thinking of using those because they have better edge stability than 3V. So you can cut with it. What that means is you can just cut stuff, even though it's like super thin behind the edge. You can cut things and there's less chance of it warping or losing its edge. And just it stays sharp and stays the same. But the problem with that is since this is going to be so thin and there's going to be a lot of percussion and stuff like that on this, 3V can do that very, very well, just from what I found out. But it can also absorb a lot of energy. So it's a lot harder to break 3V, I guess, than those two steels. So it's good enough, and I wish I could get the absolute best heat treatment of it So we'll see if we can actually do that. Okay. All right. So for those of you who made it this far, you get to hear on how I'm going to put an eyeball on this handle and how that's going to be hard. So for this side, I'm going to do a G10 eyeball, specifically an evil eye. And the way that's going to work is this will be the hole. Let's say this is a 1/8 inch hole. And that's going to be a piece of just black G10. But it's going to have another piece of G10, which will be 1/4 inch. And that would be Tiffany blue. And then it's going to have a 3/8 piece of G10. This is not the scale. And that will be white. So that will make an evil eye, basically, on the other side, which is completely fine. It should be easy, something like this. So I just have to do a 1/8 hole there, and instead of red, it's gonna have blue, and instead of green, it's gonna have white. So pretty simple, right? On this side, here's where the hard part is. I want the eyeball facing that way. So here's the 1/8 black G10, which is the hole, the original hole. And then here, this is how it's gonna have to look, is the piece of Tiffany blue, 1/4 inch, and here's 3/8. So, put this all the way here. So, it doesn't seem that bad, right? But the main problem is this guy here, the Tiffany blue part. Because that actually looks, it's not a circle, it's going to be oblonged, something like this. And I have an idea of how to do it, but it's going to be a pain. So yeah, instead of making a circle, I have to think of a way to make an oblong shaped piece and then put that here and have all of this line up and then line up with this hole and then line up with the other side. The other side's gonna be this side's gonna be this. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, but yeah, like always, any questions or suggestions, let me know. All right.